Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hello, my little sweetness. Have you
Hey,
been a
how's it
good
going?
boy this week?
I've always tried to be.
You been the good boy? Yes, you do.
Yes, I have. So this week's topic, we're going to talk about motherhood and your first year of experiencing it. And what was it like?
Okay. First, before we go into that, there was something. Oh, cat again.
Just push him away. It's fine.
Why do you have to act like such an animal all the time? I can't just push her away. She'll get offended.
Yeah.
Amongst other things. So, anyway, there was something though that you mentioned on one of the other podcasts that jolted my memory, and I just want to mention it very, very briefly. You asked me a question, I think it was a few episodes ago, about did I have any friends whose parents were Holocaust survivors?
Yes.
And what was the effect? And I remembered like way back in my memory, just today, about I had a voice student who her mother was the child of Holocaust survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was teaching her, of course, classical singing, classical voice. And her mother was a fantastic piano player. And so her mother would come very often and accompany her on the piano while I was doing vocal coaching. So there was this one song that was in German, an art song. And her mother, cringed when she started to sing. Her mother said to me that her parents were Holocaust survivors, and whenever she hears the German language, even in opera, even in whatever works, the minute she hears German, she just she can't stand it. And this was two generations later. And then I had a friend in high school who had a very interesting background. His father was an American soldier, Jewish American soldier, who was stationed in Paris during the war. And he met his mother, who was some sort of Parisian entertainer at the time. And she was not Jewish. She converted to Judaism, and she married his father. And I don't know if she fought in the underground or something or what, but he said when she would go shopping to any type of store, she would look at where anything was made. If it was made in Germany, she would not buy it.
Mm. So, yeah, now trying to segue out of this one.
Doing it again, but that's okay. I just wanted to throw that in there, because sometimes, like some of our previous podcasts, somehow my brain sometimes will kind of freeze or whatever. Yeah. And then when I have time to relax, things like bits of memory will resurface.
Yes.
After having been, forgotten about for so many years. So I just wanted to mention that. So we can go right ahead to the topic at hand, though.
Yeah.
So we were talking earlier today about what it was like for me to have my first child. And something, your generation, Kanai Nahar, it's a lot easier having, basically having a baby in this day and age, and taking care of a baby is a lot easier than in my day. In my day, true, there were Pampers, but Pampers were the brand Pampers was the only brand of disposable diapers. And it was let me turn up, there's a light that's shining in my head back there that's like reflecting on here. So let me just turn it off, because I think we'll get a better we'll have a better video quality without it. There it is. So, but Pampers were very expensive, extremely. The cheapest way to take care of babies' diapers was to just buy your own cloth diapers and wash them yourself. But if you didn't have time for that, there was diaper service, and the diaper service was very reasonable. But even with the diaper service, they stipulated that if the baby had a soiled diaper, you had to rinse it out in the toilet. You could not just give them dirty diapers like that. They had to be rinsed out in the toilet first. So don't ask if it was Shabbos, it was Yom Tov, And after Shabbos or Yom Tov, I had to rinse out all these diapers in the toilet. There was also, later on, they came out with cloth diapers with Velcro, but they didn't have them that yet in my day. The way that you had to put the diaper on the baby was you had these big, they were huge, like this big, diaper pins with a big plastic top. And sometimes it was hard. You had to fold over the diaper to fit the baby. And sometimes it was hard to get that pin through the different folds of diaper. And don't ask how many times I pricked myself. I pricked your sister, the baby. My sister had the same experience one time with her daughter. How many times she would try to put a diaper on her daughter and wind up pricking the baby or pricking her own finger. Then over the cloth diapers, you had these plastic panties, and they were like a bubble almost. You put these soft plastic panties on the baby. And sometimes if the plastic panties got soiled, you'd wash them out, but of course they weren't dry in time to put them back on the baby. And sometimes you ran out of them. And if you ran out of them, so you just put the cloth diaper on the baby, you put clothing on the baby, and if the baby wet, him or herself, the urine went right through to the clothing. And there were times that I had to change my baby's clothing as much as maybe 6-7 times a day, because every time they wet a diaper, the clothing got wet. There was also the baby carriages were not of a very high quality, unless you wanted to spend a lot of money on a British pram, which a friend of mine did. A friend of mine spent, well, at that time was $200, which would be $400 now. And she spent $200 on this British pram, and they were fantastic. I mean, they were very sturdy. But if you couldn't afford like $200 for a British pram like that, so you got cheaper baby carriages. And the baby carriages in those days didn't last past maybe 2 years. That was my experience. Then the car seats, the baby car seats, when your older sister was born, the car seat laws hadn't been passed yet. So there were many people who were still holding their babies in their laps while riding in cars. When the car seats did come out and people started using them, even though there's no car seat laws yet. The car seat laws weren't passed until about, I think it was like 1985, around there. So to put the car seat in, you had to punch a hole in the back the part of the back window called there was like a little platform in front of the window in those days, in front of your back window. You had to punch a hole in there. You had to put like a screw in there, and you had to screw in the tether from the car seat. And that was it. When you put that car seat in, it was there permanently. You couldn't, and if you needed to switch cars, you couldn't move that car seat. It was stuck. It was there. It was stuck there. So you either had the choice of buying 2 car seats or always using that car if you're going to take your baby anyplace. Then there was breastfeeding. Well, my parents, my mother's entire generation, sad to say, were totally propagandized against breastfeeding. They were told that the baby wasn't getting enough. They were told if the baby was cranky, they would tell women, oh, maybe your milk disagrees with the baby. Maybe your milk is too thin. One of the things that the doctors did, by the way, during the 20s and 30s, was the doctors didn't realize that breast milk functions the same way as cow's milk. The richest part of cow's milk is from the lower middle to the end of the production of the milk. The first few ounces are thin and are not very rich. So if a baby was cranky, what a doctor would do, a doctor would have the woman express like a few drops of breast milk, and he would put it under a microscope and he would analyze it and most likely say, oh, this happened to my grandmother during the 1920s. Oh, your milk is too thin. You have to put the baby on formula. The thing too also about formula that that my mother's generation was propagandized about was they were told it was obvious that when you put a baby on formula, they gain weight more quickly. But what they didn't know was that quick weight gain, that was not like good protein type, muscle type gain. It was fat, unadulterated fat. So even though a baby was being breastfed, wasn't gaining weight as quickly, still what the milk was, the baby was basically producing better like muscle tone. So when I was nursing my babies, anytime there was a problem, there were certain older family members who will go unnamed who would get on my case, or if the baby was sick, would get on my case. As a matter of fact, my father-in-law had the nerve to go over one time our baby was sick. They had a cold, virus. These things happen, People get sick occasionally. And right away he said to your father, you better tell her to stop breastfeeding that baby. That's why the baby got sick.
Well,
there was also something else that the women didn't realize until they did research in the mid-1980s. They discovered that a nursing mother for the first 3 months of nursing a baby should keep away from milk products, leafy vegetables, and tomatoes, garlic, cucumbers, things like that, melons. All that would make the baby colicky. And they didn't realize that. In fact, I came across a breastfeeding book published in 1984, and I showed it to my nurse midwife, where it was saying how a nursing mother's got to drink lots of milk. And she just looked at it, she just shook her head and said, it was published before the research came out.
You think
what?
You think they should have been grass-fed? Yeah, waka waka waka.
That was not very nice of you.
It's fine. You'll get over it. You're a smart cookie. Continue. You were saying about your nurse midwife.
So anyway, then I was also, one of the problems too was you had a lot of doctors well-meaning doctors who gave very bad advice at the time. My pediatrician, when my first child was born, when your sister was born, told me, you need your rest. So you make sure you put that baby in another room. Well, guess what happened? Just the opposite happened, because the baby was in another room and I didn't realize how, being a new parent, I did not realize how often babies wake up. In fact, during a growth spurt, babies will wake up every 2 hours to nurse. So every 2 hours, I was getting up, going into the other room, sitting, picking up the baby, sitting down in the rocking chair, rocking back and forth, nursing the baby. I almost fell asleep a couple of times, almost dropped her, and then going back to my bed. By the second child, Baruch Hashem, your other sister, I was smart. And I said, the baby is going to sleep next to my bed in the baby carriage. And when she would wake up, I would nurse her.
Did you ever drop any of us?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. Thank God, no.
Oh, okay.
Almost. There was one time when Etty was a baby, I got stung by a bee on my lip, and boy, did it swell up. So so Pop, your grandfather, my father-in-law, was a pharmacist. So he immediately gave me Benadryl. I didn't realize one of the side effects of Benadryl is dizziness. And I picked up your sister to take care of her. And I turned around to put her back in her crib, and I stumbled, I rushed. Of course, I was able to get her to the crib and put her inside the crib safely, but I almost fell with her. I almost stumbled I almost fell right over. Not realizing, because I was so dizzy from the Benadryl. It was a Benadryl, sorry, Benadryl.
You were talking earlier about the I guess the diapers that were cloth, and that there were
Mhm.
these companies that would go ahead and I guess pick them up and launder them.
Right. Mhm.
And
And I'll tell you a funny story. Is that a funny story
yeah, yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
my father? Okay. My father um had to buy a new truck. And I have a feeling that this might have been one of those uh used trucks from one of those baby diaper services, because it was all pink. The baby diaper service trucks were always pink. So he got a very good deal on this truck and he bought it. And one day he's, working out on the field, and he's delivering, his fruits and vegetables and chicken orders. And he hears this woman yelling, "Wait, wait, stop." And she starts running towards him with this big bag of dirty diapers.
Yeah. Um, so uh I was trying to ask you some of these other questions. Um, I guess one of them had to do with what would be the best and worst things about getting older.
That's a really good question. Because I remember one time thinking to myself, I think when I hit my like 50s, one day I remember thinking to myself, hey, if I'm getting older, why am I getting happier? You, I mean, there's a point where it's like as you get older, you do get wiser, and you realize a lot of these little picky things that bothered you so much as a younger person were really not worth getting upset about. Like for example, I had a situation yesterday that I think had I been in my 20s I would have just yelled at this woman. I think I would have like totally like almost lost it. What happened was I was expecting an air conditioning person to come and service my air conditioning, like a yearly thing, tune up, check it out, especially here, there's a tendency for like things to grow into the air conditioning line and water to back up. So it's good for once a year to get a service person out to totally suck the water out of to clear out the line. And they put a chemical in there to prevent this growth in the water line from the air conditioner, so that you don't get this water back up. So I was waiting for this person to come, and he never showed up, and I never got anything over my phone. And then I kept looking at my phone. I never got any messages. And then that night, something occurred to me. I thought, oh no, what happened was I use your father's phone occasionally for, looking over certain things, for sometimes downloading Torah Shiurim on the phone. So I pick up his phone and I see there's a message. And it's the woman from the office of the air conditioning company telling me that the man's at your gate and you're not letting him in. What's going on? And then saying he had to go, he had to leave. Please call me to reschedule. And it was on your father's phone. And I thought, oh my goodness, it never occurred to me that your father's phone, because when we moved here, he set up the whole air conditioning service. It didn't occur to me that your father's phone was the main number on the account, and that's why all the messages went to his phone, not to mine. So so I called her up, and I explained the situation, and she goes, "Oh," she apologized, and so okay, we'll just reschedule, and just very calmly. So she took my number, and she says, "Okay, I'm going to make this, I'm just going to put this as the main number on the account, and that'll solve the situation." And okay, so we'll reschedule for another time. But as a younger person, I think I would have been like really upset and everything, and my time is so valuable, and I got to do this and I got to do that, and but actually you do, as an older person, learn how to handle things more calmly. Your older brothers and sisters, like as the time went on, and I was raising younger and younger children that were coming along, your everyone's older brother and sister always notices something about the parents. They always say, why do you let him or her do that? When I was his age, you wouldn't let me do that. Why are you letting him do that or her do that? That's because as your kids are getting older and you're bringing more children into the world, you you get smarter about things, about, let's say it, you fight your battles more wisely. You realize what it's worth to fight about and what it's not worth to fight about. But the answer I gave one of your brothers and sisters when they asked me that, I looked at them and said, because you're adopted and we don't love you as much. Happy.
Yeah. I'm noticing that as well as I'm getting older, like picking my battles, I can always leave. I'm not too worried about certain things. When certain situations happen, I feel like there's always an exit and I can always walk away. But as a child and a young adult, it's harder because those options aren't always there.
Yeah.
You don't have a car, you have to stay there because your parents are there, different things like that, where it's just like you're really stuck in a corner in a rock and hard place. And the older you get, the more freedom you have and the less care you realize you need. And also there's this point where, like, the older you're getting, you have this moment where, we're going to be forgotten in 3 generations, so what does it matter? Which segues to my next question. What is one thing you want me to remember you by? Have you thought about that?
What's the thing I want you to remember me by?
Yeah.
My sweet disposition.
If that's what you want to take with you is Jewish sarcasm, then so be it. But I'm trying to have
I'm really sarcastic. Yeah.
Exactly. So, well, on a different note,
and also my forgiving attitude, and never seeking revenge.
sure, 100%. What do you want or wish for your children?
That's a good question. That they all be this. I know this is going to sound cheesy, but that they all be Bal Yerushalayim. Because if you're not Bal Yerushalayim, then you just, how can you be a good person?
Yeah.
How can you really be a good person without being a Bal Yerushalayim? And if you're not a good person, if you're not a Bal Yerushalayim, then that's the slippery slope to being a total narcissistic psychopath. Not having a conscience. Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah. And it's scary. It's scary. That's I would never, ever, ever want any of my children or descendants to, to be, to do anything that would be, how to say, immoral, illegal type thing. That'd be so egotistical that they think that they're above the law and above morality.
Yeah. So then that leads me to my next question. What secrets in the family do you feel like you've never spoken about?
If I spoke about them, they weren't secrets.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, whatever, let's just get this over with.
Okay. You're not really my son.
Sure.
A policeman found you in a trash can.
Life
and
isn't that
brought you
kind.
to us because he heard we were kind.
Wonderful. Okay, so I got 5 questions with 2 straight answers. I love it. Fantastic. So tell me about your flight.
That was like me at the airport the other day trying to get a straight answer.
Exactly.
Tell about my airport experience.
We're segueing into the flight story. Tell us everything.
God. Oh no. I know. I heard somebody, and you don't like to get political, but there are some people that are saying that the Secretary of Transportation, I think his name is Pete Buttigieg is his name? Pierre Buttigieg? Yeah, they say that a lot of the stuff that's going on is on his achrayus.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what happened. I was flying to Milwaukee for your sister's bridal shower. I mean, this is my youngest child. This is her bridal shower. It meant a lot to me. And I was supposed to fly to JFK and then take a connecting flight to Milwaukee. I'm not going to say the names of the airlines, but because maybe they'll do teshuva and get their act together. So when I get to the airport, I'm told evidently they had sent me a message, but they didn't send it the way I usually receive it. Usually I receive these messages on on my regular like messenger, thing, message, whatever it is, or I get an email. And I looked at the app. I didn't see it in the app, but evidently it was sent to me, but it was sent like very, very late. And it was at Motsui Shabbos. I didn't see it. I didn't have time to look at it because I wanted to pack and get ready for the flight the next day. I get to the airport, Fort Lauderdale, to be told that my connecting flight from JFK is canceled. So I thought to myself, well, maybe shall I fly up there anyway and see if there's a flight the next day? But what would happen if there is no flight the next day? Then I'm stuck at JFK. Like, what do I do? So I said to them, well, I really need to get to Milwaukee. What should I do? And they said, there's a flight out of Charlotte, North Carolina, to Milwaukee. And they said, we can fly you up there. And, we can switch you to another, you can pick it up there. Okay, that sounds logical. All right, it sounds reasonable, right? Well, okay. First of all, the first flight left late, and I was just in time to make it for the connecting flight. So fortunately, I did not have any baggage to have to worry about. I had my suitcase. I had a small suitcase with me, small carry-on, and when the plane landed, as people getting off, I just called out, "Excuse me, please, I've got a connecting flight. I've got to get to it right away." And people were so nice. Everyone just moved right to the side for me. Very sweet of them, the whole plane. Everyone just moved right to the side. I thanked everybody. It was so sweet of them. And I ran as fast as I could. Well, I can't really run anymore, but I walked very briskly. And my shlomazel, this connecting flight was at the other end of the airport. Couldn't be right next door to the gate. Couldn't be the next gate. No, it's got to be on the other side. I go to the other side. The flight is canceled. Evidently, there's a storm or something. There's weather coming through the Midwest. So I go over to the customer service. What do I see? I see a line. I see a long line. I see a line of people going down, down, down. And I walk to the back of the line. Wait. I said, "Excuse me, is this the line for customer service?" And they go, "Mm-hmm." And as the line is going up, I see people in this big area sleeping on what I call hotel floor. And I finally come up. It's finally my time. It was really sad. I mean, I'm talking to the people in line. Everyone's upset. And in fact, this one young man that was near me, he was he's a singer and an actor. And he was supposed to be in a show the next day. And his flight got canceled. And he was just, he has to be there. I mean, he's talking to, I don't know if it was the producer, the agent. He's talking to the guy on the phone, and he's telling him the situation, and they're trying desperately to see what they can do to work things out. So I come up and they tell me they're going to give me a voucher for a hotel, me and all these other people, voucher for a hotel, voucher for car service to and from the hotel, and that they can put me on standby on a plane till Milwaukee that's leaving tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. Fine. I could get there by 12, which would be plenty of time for the bridal shower. So we go to this, I go to this hotel, I get to the hotel, and what do I see? There's a line going from the lobby of the hotel to almost, I would say, a quarter of a block down. We were all in that line with the mosquitoes nibbling at us for, had to be about 45 minutes. Finally, we all get in, and these are all these people from this flight. And we all get in, and the room was very comfortable. It was a very nice hotel. The room was very comfortable. The next morning, I go to, they have breakfast. So I went there to see if there was any packaged stuff I could eat. And yeah, there was packaged oatmeal I was able to eat, and there were fresh apples that were wrapped up in cellophane. I was able to eat those. There was coffee, and usually I love coffee, but my stomach was in such a knot that I couldn't stomach it. So I get the car service back to the airport. I get to the airport, and it's time to board the plane. And they call the names of people on standby. Please stand over here on the side. And they turned to us and they said, sorry, we were overbooked. We can't get you on the plane. And I didn't burst out in tears, but tears are starting to come down my face. And the woman next to me burst into tears because her son was getting surgery that morning in Milwaukee, and she needed to be there at the hospital for him. So I go over to customer service. What's next? They said, we can get you on standby on a plane that's leaving at 4:00. I said to her, please be honest with me. What are my chances of getting on that plane? And she says, quite honestly, she goes, that flight was also overbooked. And I'm going to be honest with you, your chances are very, very unlikely. So she said, but we definitely can get you on a plane at 11:00 tonight. I said, that is too late. That's not going to do me any good. So I said, can you get me a flight back to Florida? She says, no. I go, no. So I just walk away. I sit down. I'm saying to myself, don't lose it. Don't lose it. Don't lose it. Oh, by the way, the airport, the air conditioning was not working like totally sufficiently. The airport was totally a zoo. There were a tremendous number of canceled flights, delayed flights. There was and finally, there's a woman who actually passed out. I saw she was passed out in the middle of the hall of the walkway there with her little 5-year-old boy sitting next to her crying and the paramedics working on her. That's how bad it was. So I'm thinking what to do. I tried calling the airlines, and they said, if I want to talk to a person, it's going to cost me $25, and I have a 1-hour waiting time, but I can use the messaging service. So I go on to use the messaging service, which is free. And they said, sorry, we can't answer you right now because of the volume of calls, but we can get back to you in 45 minutes. Don't cry. What am I going to do? Thinking. So of course I call your sister, and she's at her future mother-in-law's house already in Milwaukee. She's already there. I tell them what the situation is, and so they said, we're going to call the airlines. I'm going to see what we can do. In the meantime, I have to find a plane back to Florida. I start to go all around the airport. And by the way, I go all the way over to the other end of the airport where there's Frontier, Spirit, JetBlue, all these other, because evidently Delta can't get me back. United can't get me back. I've tried them already, and American already told me no. So I'm running all over the place. I finally find one airline that has a flight to Fort Lauderdale at 10:30 that night. I'm about to buy it, and then I thought to myself, no, maybe I should check with your sister first and see what's going on. So I called your sister, and your sister says to me, do you know that you are scheduled on a flight back to Florida through that first airline that I took, where I was at the customer desk and told no, they couldn't get me back? I go, what? They go, yeah, they called. They called them, they spoke to them, they go, oh, we already put her on a flight back to Florida. What? So I go back to the customer service desk to get my, to say what's going on. She goes, yeah, you're on a flight back to, I said, well, wait a minute, didn't you tell me before no? She goes, I never told you no. I go, okay, maybe somebody else that looked like you. Anyway, so that's the story. So I've just had to turn around and go right back to Florida.
Yep.
New comment.
No, I mean, honestly, I've just listened to the whole thing. It sounds like a total adventure. I'm sorry you went through it. It must have been really terrible and real suffering.
Such adventures I don't need. An adventure would be exploring the jungle. An adventure would be like your brother when he went down to Antigua, climbing up the side of that active volcano and praying that it doesn't erupt.
Oh yes, for sure. It sounds like what a wonderful adventure.
That's an adventure.
um,
But one thing that worked out very well, um, between me running around and only eating and having 3 bottles of water and one kind bar and a small bag of pretzels in 24 hours. Oh, and the oatmeal and the apple. Yesterday, I went for my gown fitting and I fit perfectly.
wonderful. Good for you,
Yes.
Ema. Good for you. I'm really proud of you. Did a fantastic job. We're slowly running out of time, but was there anything, I guess, in your first years of motherhood that you ever want to mention or bring up?
The first few years of motherhood are, I would say, 95% sweetness, 5% difficulties. But it's worth it. If everybody's, is it worth it? Yes, yes, yes. Definitely worth it. Definitely worth every second of it. Definitely. I remember sometimes when I was playing with your older brothers and sisters, I played with you kids a lot. I really enjoyed playing with you. And I would bounce you on my knee, I would sing, I would clap your hands, I would play with you with your toys and everything. I did your books. And your father once said to me, "Must you play with them so much?" I said, "Listen, I spent 6 hours of long, hard labor bringing this kid into the world. I'm going to damn well enjoy him."
Yep. You go, girl. You got this. But yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I think it's important. I think having kids is, it's a miracle and a gift that we have to, shouldn't take lightly. But I appreciate you exploring this and talking about it. All right. I love you. Have a good Shabbos.
Love you, sweetheart. Have a good Shabbos. Mwah.